Hey guys, I'm going to talk to you about why you desire porn. Okay, why do we want this? Uh, so our brains are all about survival. Okay, that's what has helped our ancestors survive. We would not be here if they didn't survive. Um, Anything that helps us to survive or reproduce is what gets passed down through to our children, to our offspring, through evolution, right? That's how evolution works. The people with the traits that help you survive stay alive and have kids, and the people that don't have those traits die off more easily, right? So one of those traits is dopamine. Uh, Dopamine is a neurotransmitter in your brain. Neurotransmitter is just a chemical that your neurons, your nervous system cells, your brain cells, and nerve cells. It's a chemical they use to communicate. Okay, that's a neurotransmitter, and dopamine is one of those. It is what rewards you, what you feel when you experience pleasure, um, and it's designed to reward us to do things that contribute to our survival. Okay, some examples of this are food, warmth, sex, accomplishment, or connectedness, um, amongst other things. And these things are essential to our survival, right? To the survival of the human race. And that's why it's part of our brain. It's for our benefit. And it works really, really well, except for in cases of false pleasures. Okay. What a false pleasure is they are things that humans have created that are unnaturally concentrated pleasure. Okay, so an example of false pleasure, some examples are pornography, cocaine, heroin, alcohol, sugar, shopping, for some people, shopping. These things get concentrated down into a way that is unnatural for the way that our brains have evolved as humans, and so it actually tricks our brain. Okay, so we have two different parts of our brains that I'll be talking about in these videos. You have your lower brain. It's technically called your midbrain, or your animal brain, is kind of what we'll refer to it as too. And then you have your upper brain, which is your prefrontal cortex. So when you hear me talking about upper brain, it's your prefrontal cortex. That's like our higher evolved human brain that sets us apart from animals, helps us imagine and uh, plan for long-term best interest, and yeah, and then you've got your lower brain. Okay, your lower brain it does not know the difference between natural pleasures and false pleasures. Okay, so so what the natural pleasure might be, evolutionarily speaking, is the dopamine rewards us for having sex with one person one time, um, and helps us to have babies and continue the human race, right? Um, Pornography is a false pleasure in that it's concentrated down in a way that our brains aren't evolved to handle very well. So what you can do is you can watch, and rather than have sex one time with one person, you can watch like an hour of porn and get this huge dopamine release, just like loading into your brain. Okay, but your brain doesn't know the difference. So your brain thinks, oh, if there's more dopamine here, then that means this must be way more important, right? And then when you get those huge loads of dopamine flooding into your brain with these false pleasures, um, what happens is it starts to down regulate. So basically, you need more porn to get that same level of dopamine release over time, right? Um, And if you've used porn a lot, maybe you've experienced this or noticed this. Um, but but this is really important to consider because um, your brain is doing what it's designed to do, right? And this is part of why sometimes when you're trying, your upper brain's thinking, oh, I don't think I want porn in my life, or I want to stop. This doesn't seem like a good thing for me in the long term, or it's getting in the way of my real priorities. So your upper brain might be telling you that. But then at the same time, it can feel like your life depends on getting more porn, seeing more porn, right? It can feel almost like you're going to die if you don't get porn. Okay. And that's how your brain works. Your brain is like, if you imagine how people used to live in the like thousands of years ago, out in the wilds, more likely to get eaten by a lion or a tiger or bear, wild animal, whatever it is. There's danger everywhere. Our brain is designed to look for danger, all about survival. And then with dopamine, it's wanting to reward us to survive. So so in our minds, it can actually feel like a life or death situation if I don't get porn, right? Um, Reality check here. Porn is not important to your survival, right? We do not need porn to stay alive, to survive. The human race would go on just fine without pornography. Okay. Um, that's something that you might want to just start telling your brain when when you're in that state where it's like, I'm going to die if I don't get porn. Something terrible is going to happen if I do not look at porn. Um, okay, so uh, you've learned to desire porn. Our brains are designed to learn, okay? And when you combine learning with dopamine, it drastically increases the speed and effectiveness of the learning, okay? So a really good example of this is the study with Pavlov's dogs. Some of you might be familiar with this. In my pre-dental courses, I saw it everywhere in textbooks. And anyway, Pavlov's dogs are, it's a study where they basically had these dogs, and what they did is they rang a bell, and then they would feed the dogs, and that food would be the reward, right? It gets that dopamine release going in the dog's brains. And so what happened when they did this over and over is they started getting a conditioned response in these dogs where they would hear the bell and start salivating, right? Start producing saliva, getting ready to eat. Without any food present at all, just the sound of a bell was creating this saliva production in the dogs, right? And so what the same thing happens with your brain, okay? You reward it with pornography again and again, right? And you strengthen this pathway. So your desire for pornography, that over desire, is a learned response, a conditioned response. Okay. So desire is a feeling in your body, right? And our feelings, every feeling you have comes from a thought, whether it's a conscious thought or unconscious thought, every feeling comes from a thought. So you might be having a thought, I want it, right? I want pornography. And then you have the feeling of desire, okay? And that can feel really urgent and like life or death, like we talked about. And then those feelings drive our actions, okay? So in this case, the action would be to look at porn, right? So then you reward your brain with the dopamine, and then it strengthens that pattern, and your brain learns to be quicker and stronger with that conditioned response. So then the smallest triggers can start just bringing on this immediate, big, urgent, life or death feeling that you want or need porn, right? Need. And so what a lot of people do is they think that this illogical over desire for porn means there's something wrong with them, right? Especially in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. For those of you who are members like me, or maybe in other church and in other churches as well, you you might think that you're evil or you're really susceptible to temptations of the devil, and that maybe there's just part of you that's really bad, that you're impure, right? We make it mean all of these things that we'll talk about this more later, but it's not useful. Okay, when you start thinking that way, it creates these feelings in you that actually are going to lead you to use pornography more. So to realize how this process works and why your brain does this is really important and empowering, because what it shows you is that there's nothing wrong with you for wanting pornography. Okay, it actually means that there's something right with your brain, and that your brain is working perfectly by design, right? And um, it also means that you're a good learner, right? You can look at it that way. Like, your brain is really good at learning, and it's learned to desire pornography in this really big way. Okay. So you may think that you're out of control, but something to remember is you're never out of control, and it is always your decision whether to click on that porn or not, and to turn it on or not. But the good news is here, it's good news that it's always your decision, right? Because that keeps the ball in your court. And it means that you have the power to choose not to use porn as well. And I'm going to show you how to do that, because how you've been doing it, if you're here watching this video, probably hasn't worked very well. But there are amazing ways and techniques to do this that I'm going to show you. And the other good news is, just like your brain learned to over desire this pornography, it can unlearn that desire. Okay, with Pavlov's dogs, that same study we talked about, what they started doing after the dogs had the conditioned response is they started ringing the bell and not bringing food for the dogs. And the dogs, over time, when they repeated this again and again, the dogs stopped salivating. Okay, they stopped salivating when they heard the bell. The conditioned response went away. Okay, and the cool thing is, it went away way faster than it took to learn that response. And the same thing can happen for you with your conditioned desire, over desire for pornography, this false pleasure.